was kind of strange because I tell people I guess I was a late bloomer. I was involved through junior high school and high school in activities. I've always been a kind of a joiner of activities. I did what sports were available. I was drill team. I did all those sorts of things. But I didn't get involved in like student government kinds of things.
Little did she know politics would play a huge role later in life.
And I never planned when I moved to Torrance or came here that some 30 years later or something, I would be the mayor of the city of Torrance. That was the furthest thing from my mind.
Dolores Grinton was born and raised in Bellingham, Washington. She attended college in the area where she would also meet her future husband, Lowell Hardison.
You know, you go to the local high school basketball game, and we got introduced, and I guess there was some interest there, and Lowell called. We must have exchanged names and phone numbers or at some point, and he called and asked for a date, and so that started about 3.5 years of traveling between Seattle and Bellingham till we got married when I graduated from college.
Lowell's job would bring the family down to Southern California, eventually calling Torrance their home for nearly 40 years. And it was a combination of fate and community activism that would bring Dee Hardison to the forefront of local politics.
When I knew we were moving here, I researched where would our children go to school, because by then our oldest was nearly ready to start school. And I knew that I would return back to teaching when my children were a little older. And the research told me that the best school district, certainly at that time, was the Torrance School District.
Special education teacher and mother to Mark and Brad, Hardison was actively involved in the Parent-Teacher Association, along with many other local organizations.
I immediately got involved in the PTA, and so I kind of came up through the PTA and the Homeowner Association.
From there, Hardison was instrumental in getting her neighborhood park developed, the first of many under her leadership.
I had grown up living near a park, spent probably all my waking hours. I would leave in the morning, and back then I think it was communities where your parents let you go off as long as you returned home by dinner time. And I lived at my neighborhood park. And I wanted my sons to have the same opportunity. Unfortunately, when I started to work on the park, they were probably elementary school, upper elementary, and we finished Cyril Bray and dedicated it when my youngest was a senior in high school.
A labor of love, the completion of Sur La Brea Park became a springboard for Hardison's next position.
I was then encouraged to apply for the Park and Recreation Commission and help develop parks elsewhere in the city. And so once I knew that Sur La Brea was well on its way, and then I said okay, and I was appointed to the Park and Rec Commission and served on that for 8 years. I'm a good consensus builder. I found that organizations that I'm involved with, even now, I tend to be a better leader than a follower. It's a skill that I get, has kind of developed, and it's a place I feel comfortable in doing. And
her contributions to the Parks and Recreation and Planning Commissions were just the beginning of her civic involvement. This piqued an interest in greater roles within the city, especially one that was encouraged by her mentors and colleagues.
I had worked on George Nakano's campaign, and George was elected, and then after the election, George said, because I told him, I don't like to do these things at the last minute. And George said, you have 2 years. So is that enough time to, And so I spent the next 6 months kind of exploring. Did I think I had community support, and, the campaign, and actually made the decision 18 months before the election that I ran for in 1986. And I still continued teaching while I was on the city council.
From 1986 through 1994, Hardison was elected to serve on the Torrance City Council. During this time, she remained involved in different committees and organizations, all while continuing to teach in the Torrance Unified School District. And by 1994, Hardison had earned the respect and trust of the residents and was successfully elected mayor for 2 terms.
By the time I became mayor, I had served with most of those people before. A few of them were new. I always wanted to make sure that the council moved forward in everything we did, that everybody had a part. That's extremely important to me that we all are good listeners and then make decisions based on the best information we have for what's best for the city of Torrance. There wasn't enough hours in the day. So the school district was very understanding, and for the next 2 years, I just worked for the school district half-time. So I taught school. I went back to the classroom, taught school in the mornings. I was at J.H. Hull School, which is right here in my neighborhood. I taught in the morning, and from noon on, I did mayor work.
During her tenure as mayor of Torrance, Hardison worked tirelessly with her colleagues on the city council to continue to improve the quality of life for residents. Hardison was involved in helping to build the Sports Center at Charles Wilson Park, the Madrona Marsh Nature Center, the Torrance Veterans Memorial, and oversaw the expansion at the Katie Geyser Civic Center Library.
And I felt that Torrance was moving into a different period, obviously. In '86, we were pretty much a fully built out city. We had to look at then how did we keep the same quality of a balanced city. We needed, our heavy industry was leaving. We needed to find, the Hondas and the Toyotas had made a decision to come to the community. We needed to nurture that development and find other like high-tech companies to come to Torrance, but still not grow at such a rate that we would lose what was a kind of small town feeling. When I ran for office and I walked precincts, people would talk about the small town feel of Torrance. They couldn't really identify it, but they didn't want to lose it. And so, I thought I had a good sense of still that, and you can be a big city but still be a small town.
Hardison's ability to keep the city balanced helped put Torrance on the map as a great place to live, work, and play.
It was a wonderful city to live in. I can't imagine, and there were times we could have obviously moved elsewhere, but I could never once we moved to Torrance.
From 1994 until 2002, Hardison also represented the city in many noteworthy organizations.
When I became mayor, Mayor Katie had gotten involved. There was the first of an effort to start what was called the Council of Governments, where a regional government. She began the process, but it wasn't complete. When I came in, then I was very much involved. We also formed the Economic Development Partnership with the business community. I spent a lot of time in Sacramento, meeting with legislative folks, talking to the housing folks up there on how cities could meet their housing needs and still not change the dynamics of their community, which I thought was important.
Hardison's involvement ranged from the Torrance Cultural Arts Center Foundation to the Pediatric Therapy Network, the Torrance Sister City Association, Arts Council of Torrance, Torrance Rose Float Association, the Torrance Historical Society, the Torrance League of Women Voters, Enrichment Through Employment, as well as the Torrance Performing Arts Consortium, just to name a few.
If people say they don't know what to do and have nothing to do, I just say, look around. There are just so many opportunities, and there are, I guess there are still, I have a kind of a laundry list of things I still want to do, I haven't done yet, that are volunteer, that I hope I'll find an opportunity, because while I stay involved in some, I like new challenges, I like new things, but I've also, besides the city, I got very much involved after I left elective office, a little bit before, in more regional things. I'm very much involved now in healthcare, if you will, in healthcare issues with my involvement in first keeping Harbor UCLA Medical Center. I chair and still chair a community outreach committee that spent a lot of time down talking to the Board of Supervisors and talking to everybody that we needed to keep that hospital open.
Healthcare and senior housing are also topics that Hardison is passionate about. Her involvement to help keep Harbor UCLA Medical Center open was acknowledged with the Hanley Hardison Research Building, named partly in her honor.
I think it's a lifelong attitude to be involved. I've encouraged my children to do that. I encourage my grandchildren now to, how can you get involved and do something that you don't get paid for doing?
Hardison continues to volunteer and sits on several boards today. She's received numerous awards from the Torrance YMCA, Cal State Dominguez Hills, the Schweitzer Center, and many, many more. And since retiring as mayor in 2002, Hardison has garnered more awards for her leadership, dedication, and commitment to the community, including one that's named after her, the Dee Hardison Award from the Torrance Performing Arts Consortium.
I think Torrance, the value of the city of Torrance is that I don't think they make change quickly. They make change after good study and good answers. And I think we have a current city council and mayor that is moving with change as change can come.
And while many of her days are now spent with her husband and grandchildren, Hardison continues to make history in Torrance by heading the newly established Blue Ribbon Committee on Ethics and Integrity.
I had an interest in that. I'll be honest with you, I let him know that I had some interest in being involved in that because I thought, and as it turned out, I was the only former elected that was on the committee, which I think I was, and then ultimately was the chair of the committee, but I also thought that sometimes as we did the work, you had to have a historical perspective, and I think I could bring that historical perspective.
Hardison continues to make new strides for the community, and Mayor Frank Scotto, along with members of the City Council, honors her with one of the city's highest awards.
As we talked about it, there was no other name mentioned, and there was no other person that was in the level of what you've done for the city, and I think we all truly mean that. And this award, there isn't a lot of people that get this kind of award, and I know there's a lot of people in this audience that would like to say a lot, that worked with you, were council people with you, and they're just chomping at the bit to come up to this microphone. We're not going to let them though, because we'll be here all night. But for one, I truly appreciate what you've done for this community. I think that there's very few people in this community that will ever be able to do what you've done, and you continue to do that.
It's humbling, I have to tell you. I guess one thing would be neat if you could fast forward 50 years and hear what people say. I think the thing that's still nice is that the community doesn't forget you. I think the important thing is whether you're on the council or particularly as the mayor, you don't do a job in isolation. You don't. You do it because you work with other people to reach consensus. And so I guess where I have gone through these years in Torrance, from before I was on a commission and council and mayor and even beyond, has been greatly affected by the people that I've had the privilege to have served with, because this is a team effort. I'm very much of a team player in whatever I do, and I couldn't have done what I have done through the years if it hadn't been for those wonderful team members at various times in my life that helped me in my leadership, but also helped move the process along. And so I guess I accept this award with my team.